Well, I'm going to talk to you about experiential base opportunities I had as a vice principal, superintendent, and director, and I found that any type of organization, whether it's a large organization or just a part of an organization such as a school environment, I found that usually the members of that organization, teachers, staff, parents, they already know what changes need to be made. It's just finding out how those changes can occur, and B, instilling a process where folks have an opportunity to dialogue and to discuss and brainstorm, so that there's more of a confirmation of what those changes need to be. So what I've recommended to potential leaders is take some time. You need to take some time and get to know individuals and have the dialogue, either one-on-one or in small groups, but face-to-face dialogues about what changes need to occur and what timelines do individuals feel are appropriate for those changes to occur, and what's the course of action. And then once you've collated that information, you go back to the stakeholders and you confirm the issues you've heard. So it is a detailed process. It's a very lengthy process, but it's been the process that has produced results. And it's cyclical in terms of the feedback mechanism. It's like the old curriculum review development implementation cycle that was developed about 20, 30 years ago, is that you gather the information, you implement the change, and you go back to the feedback in terms of where are you in the change cycle, so that there's adaptations, there are changes to the changes, so that it's organic. It's always undergoing a process of refinement. No, your role as a leader is to gather information. At the end of the day, you're the one who's going to have to make the decision about what changes to implement and how those are going to occur. But that's why communication is such a key, in that once you've gathered that information, once you've made decisions, once you've sought input, you're the one who has to communicate back to the stakeholders and say, okay, this is what I heard. These are the changes that we're going to initiate, and we're going to work together in achieving those changes and achieving those goals. So the stakeholders, they have input, but they're not the final decision makers. Being a leader means you have to accept responsibility for that too, but you just don't make it in isolation. I guess that's the key point. You don't make those decisions in isolation. Well, I can refer to both my entry plan as a director into a large organization and as a principal at a school, in that it is a time-consuming, lengthy process. It's detailed, and if I go back to the school, when I entered a large school, 75 staff members, 900 students, it worked really, really well for the first year and a half. But then there's staff changes, and it's really important that you maintain that continuity of communication, of involvement, staff meetings, staff involvement, the counseling, the consultation, and the conversations that need to occur. So I did find at some point in time, about a year and a half, things started breaking down, and I realized, staff is not a constant. Staff membership is not a constant. It changes, and as that changes, there is that need for a continuous and ongoing dialogue. It's important that when the leader or the school administrator refers back to the stakeholders in terms of what the game plan is, that there's documentation attached to that there are key outcomes identified, that there are timelines that are attached to those key outcomes. And part of the evaluation is coming back to the stakeholders and saying, this is where we are, this is how we're doing, here are the key indicators, here are the areas that we haven't been able to address. It is a constant, as I said, organic process. As a leader, it's really important that you mention, I call it the 4 M's: mention, model, monitor, and modify. And any type of school, whether it's working in a secondary school or an elementary school or a system, divisions, departments, any organization is made up of smaller units, and it's really important that all the units are on the same page, that all the departments, all the divisions are working collaboratively towards the same end product. And there are times when you have to have the difficult conversation, either with a group or with an individual. And it's very interesting because the staff members or the community members who are participating and agreeing and working towards the end product, they're watching you as a leader, and they're watching to make sure that your integrity is in place and that you're committed to achieving those goals, those key outcomes. And sometimes that means sitting down and having a difficult conversation or taking difficult actions. You have to take the good with the bad being a leader.
Yep.
The most difficult, most challenging one is around performance review and or discipline. And sometimes you have to do one or the other with a staff member. And it's also important that being a school administrator or a superintendent director, you have the support of those you report to. Because when you go forward, you need to know that the difficult actions you're going to take in terms of evaluating a staff member or dealing with a discipline type issue is supported at levels higher than your responsibility or your assignment. So I can refer to some specific examples where I sat down with individuals and I started the termination process, or sometimes a fresh start is just as good. But being a school administrator, being a leader of a department or a school system means that you have to uphold the integrity of the process and keep your eye on the final product, which of course is student learning.